Hey guys, Omerko here, self-taught web developer. This is my first crash course of many to come. This one will be about Git version control. Regarding this course, it will be quick and it will be based for beginners. So we will not take a look into everything that Git can do. I am currently on my GitHub profile and through this course we will use GitHub as a software to work with Git. So what is Git? Git is version control system that will allow us to track our changes through our code. It is created to follow with programmers, so when we work in a bigger teams, we could distribute different types of code, different branches of code, and also we could go back through the versions of those branches. It is based for programmers, but it can follow the changes through all the files. Basic commands of Git that we will explore today would be init to initialize the Git repository, that main component for our Git. Status, just to check our latest status on our current branch. Then we will take a look into add, commit, push, pull, and clone. Those are all methods that we will use to work with our Git version control and with our code. Git is pretty much easy to install. This is the official Git distributed website. You could come here and download the version that you need. So if I'm on Windows, I would click here and I would download the Windows version. It's a pretty much simple installer, so you could install it on your own. Once you install it, you will have this tool called Git Bash. So when I search for Git Bash here, it will open up a terminal look for me. So now to check that we have installed Git, you could write git -- version and you will see the version that we installed. My version is obviously a bit older, but that's not the point here. So if I just type git here, I could see different methods that we could run with Git. We will take a look at a couple of those today. You could work with Git not just with Git Bash, but also with any type of command lines like PowerShell or terminal, etc. So now let's create a project that we will work on. I will close my Git Bash here, minimize my browser, and here I have that file for the folder for a project. I will go into it here and I will select Shift and right click on Windows, and here I have Git Bash to open up the Git Bash into this repository. If you are not opening the Git Bash into this repository, then I suggest you to reroute to this project with cd -- /. So now that I have opened my Git Bash here, I will type code and that to open up my Visual Studio Code. I will create a simple website. It will be index.html. I will use HTML5 here. HTML website, and I will type just h1 hello world. So now when I minimize my Visual Studio Code, and here I will have that file, I will open up my website and there it is. So now to initialize our Git repo here in our website, I will go to my Git project. We will need to open up our Git Bash that we had, and here we will type git init. So now you can see that it initialized the empty Git repository for us, and this is a local repository on our local machine. It will not go to any type of software like GitHub that we will use today. So it is a master called master. This is a master branch, main branch of our code. So if I come here to my folder and I select view here and select hidden items, now we will have this hidden .git folder. When we go inside, it is just the Git methods and the folders files that it needs. So with this folder, Git will know how to work with our project, and we don't need really to see this here, so we will put it back to hidden. So now we can run git status method that I mentioned on start, and when we run it, you can see that we don't have commits yet. There is one red file here. It is index.html. What does this mean, like a red file? So the red means that we didn't commit any type of changes, and that all of those changes are not saved. They are just on our local machine. staying there. We have changes inside and we didn't save those changes. So to save those changes, we will run git add, and you can see here git add, and we will type a file name. But when we have multiple files, we won't type like index.html, styles.css, app.js. It will be too much for us. So Git has this dot method that we could type a dot, and it will add all the files that are changed. So when I put dot here and hit enter, we will not get any callback here. But now when we run git status, that index.html will be green. So the green files means that there are changes there that are committed and need to be pushed to some repo that we will have hosted on GitHub, Bitbucket, etc. So now to commit our changes, as we didn't commit, we can use git commit, and with git commit we could put M, and this M stands for message. So now I could type a message. So for example, I would type a simple HTML file as a message, and I will hit enter. As a callback, we get that one file was changed, and we will get what it is changed. So now when we run git status, we will see that on our master branch we have nothing to commit, right? And that working tree that we are currently working on is clean. So now when we go back to our project, to Visual Studio Code, we can now create a CSS file. So when I create styles.css, I will also select h1 tag and say that color of the h1 tag should be red. Let me import that CSS file. So link css styles.css. When we go back to our browser, our h1 tag is red. So now let's go back into Git Bash. Here I will type clear to clear our terminal. So now I can run git status again, and you can see that we have different files. We have one file added, styles.css, and we also have one file modified, which means that we changed something in our file. So when we go back to our project, we can see that we added here this styles.css link, and here by side we have this green line, which means that this is the latest change, modified change on our Git version. This is just something nice that Visual Studio have implemented, so it could follow up with the Git version controls. So back to our Git Bash. Now when we hit git add to add again all the files with dot, and we run git status again, now we have that one file is modified and one new file is created. So with that, when we commit now, git commit with the message, and we will take like we will give message like styling h1, hit enter, everything is changed, right? Well, not changed, but committed to our master branch. So now let's create something that Git also has in mind. So I will create a file called git ignore, and this file will basically ignore all the files that we have inside. So now I could create a file sample.js file, and when we run git status here, git status, you can see that we have two files added, like git ignore and sample.js. But in git ignore, we could type the files of or entire folders that we wish to exclude from our pushes to our branch. So I could type here like sample.js, and now you can see that green color from the sample is moved to the gray color, which means that this sample file won't be followed with git at all. So now when we run git status, you can see that we have just one file here, and it is git ignore file. So basically, if you wish to exclude some of the files pushed to your main branch on your repository, you could basically exclude those in git ignore. You could also exclude entire folders, which is basically used for example node modules or large libraries. So git add, git status. You know the drill, you could do it on your own. So git commit with message, ignoring files, and that's it. So now when we run git status, we won't have anything to commit. So we worked for now just on master branch, which usually you won't work on master branch. Master branch is the branch that you will keep your code on, right? That branch will go to your production app, to your staging app, right? You will usually work on different branches. So let's create a new branch here. So to create our branch, we will type git checkout. This checkout will immediately check us out from master to the branch that we will create. We will use a b here for a branch, and then we will type a branch name. So it will be HTML changes, as we will work with the HTML on this new branch, and we will type a name of the branch that we wish to check out from, and that's master. So you can see now that it is switched to a new branch called HTML changes. And here also you can see that the branch that we are currently working on is called HTML changes. So let's create some changes to our HTML here. So let's add paragraph with some lorem ipsum text. And when we go back to Git Bash, we will type git status. As usual, we will have this index.html modified. So git add all, git status, git commit, right? HTML changes. Let's call it like that. And that is it. So now we could also from this branch go back to our master branch. So git checkout master. And you can see the change that happened in our code. Here we lost that paragraph. Why? Well, basically the master branch didn't have the paragraph inside of the code, and our HTML changes branch had it. So this is what it means to work with different version controls. And also we could go versions in a history back. So now let's push our whole project to our GitHub repository. Let's go back to GitHub, and here on the top we will have this plus icon for a new repository. We could create it like that. We should pass the repository name, which will be sample project, for example. That's okay. You could type a description here. You could make it a public or a private repository. We could make it a public for this one. You could initialize readme file. You don't need to. Add git ignore. You already know that we had that. And the license for it, we don't need that also. So when we hit here create repository, it will create the repository for us that we could use with our project. So this is how we could create a new project, or if we have already existing repository, then we could use this. We will type git remote for remote control from our local machine to a machine on GitHub here, and we will add origin, the whole origin to the our project. I will copy this entirely, and back in our Git Bash, here I will use paste and hit enter, and that is it. So now we could use git push, copy it, and also back in Git Bash, paste it, hit enter, and now it is pushing our changes of our master branch to our repo, and there it is. So now when we come here and refresh, reload this page, now you could see the changes on this page. We will have a git ignore index.html and style css file. You can also see that there is no sample.js file, as it is not pushed. It is inside of the git ignore file. You could also see that we have just one branch, and that branch is called master. Why? Well, because we didn't create the branch HTML changes on GitHub, we just created it on our local machine. So when we go back to Git Bash, now we could run git fetch. Let's see if something will happen. Nothing, but we still can git checkout to our HTML changes branch. Why? Well, because it is on our local machine. So now let's clear our Git Bash here, and we could push this branch to the GitHub also. We will type git status first to see if there is something to commit. Nothing. So we'll use git push u for upstream. We will type origin HTML changes, and we will wait it a bit, and everything should be pushed right now. Yes, it is. So when we go back to our GitHub and we refresh this page, now we will see the new branch HTML changes, and we will also see the changes that we made. So we could create a pull request from here. I will talk about the pull request soon. So let's go back to our Git Bash here. Let me read this to you. So basically it created a pull request for the HTML changes. So basically it get our local branch and it will push to our sample project basically. So now we could also use that HTML changes branch on our sample project, and the future programmers could do also. And it will also set up to track our HTML changes as a remote branch. So each change that we made, it will be tracked with Git, and it will be handled by GitHub. So let's create now this pull request. Let me go back first in code like this. So now I can explain to you different workflow that you will have with your Git repositories. So mostly you will have that one branch. Let's call it master as it is, and there will be your main code. If you have some other developers or yourself working on some features, or you will divide your front end from back end work, you will mostly create new branches called for the front end or from the back end work, or by the features, like you are working on sidebar, you will create a sidebar branch. You are working on navigation, you will create a navigation branch. And once you done your work there, you will push your work to a remote, and from there your main developer could compare and make the pull request for you will create a pull request, but that main developer will follow up with that pull request and see does that changes are okay, is there any conflicts, etc. Here you can see that I have a latest push on my HTML changes, that is and that push, those changes are not on my master branch here. That's why we get this yellow section like this. We could compare and pull and make that pull request, and we will go to create that one now. So here you can see that we have this success message like able to merge. If we have a conflict message, then it will say that there was a conflict, and we will and now we can create a pull request from this part. Also on the sidebar you could put some labels, different projects, also reviewers, which we could put here, right? So we could type the name of a different developer that you wish to check your code before you make a push, you make a merge to a master branch. But as we are the only one here, we don't need to do that. If we scroll down a bit, you could see the changes that we had, and that was the one change that we created for the paragraph, and we could create a pull request for it. So create pull request, and you could see the yellow a bit here that it was a checking the pull request, and if everything is okay, we will get this green section and we will be able to merge. So we will select the merge pull request, and we will confirm merge with this commit HTML changes. That was the commit that we created, and you have now this purple color that everything was merged. When we go back to our code and we open up our index.html file here, now we can see that on our master branch in our index.html we have h1 and also that paragraph that we didn't have before, right? It was easy to merge it through GitHub. Okay, so this was a simple crash course about Git version control. This is all just to show you how usual workflow will go with Git version control. I hope that you liked this video. If you do, please click like and subscribe, as I'm posting new content weekly. So, see you in the next week.